looking at the Hitcher 2021 in the daylight. It is still running the way it was last year, last Halloween. And you can see some shortcomings, like Phineas and Ezra's heads are not moving. They surely can, and they do, you just don't see it. That's one of the problems we're going to take care of this year. Also, the movements aren't quite as pronounced as I want them to be, and I'm going to try to fix that. And hopefully, in this video, you'll see the kind of things that we need to do to make that happen. Here we are looking at the back, and you can see some of the apparatus involved in making the arms move. The same apparatus also moves Gus's head in the opposite direction. The way we intended for the heads to move involves that little bar in the center of the picture right here. That is an old FCG motor. It's an old 2Z806, and it's been with me for a long time. These motors last forever, and if you're thinking about using a wiper motor to do this, think again. They have brushes, you got to use DC, and they're not meant for continuous duty for hours and hours a night. So, think about spending the money on the motor, because it really is important that the motor be reliable and built to do what it's doing. Here is our smaller Hitcher rack motor that came from China via Amazon. This is a sturdy, strong little motor intended for use on microwave turntables. It rotates both clockwise and counterclockwise depending on the wiring of the capacitor that runs the machine, or that allows the machine to run. What are the rollers for? Well, the rollers are there to keep the torque off of this bolt right here and its twin over on the left. These are stainless steel bolts, and if you decide you're going to put dimensional characters on this, keep them light. As you can see here, Phineas's bag and left arm hang free, and there's a little swaying that occurs occasionally, which is a real plus for this. The other piece that's free to move is the ball and chain on Gus. I mean, you can animate it if you want, but generally it moves a little bit too and really doesn't need that. Up to you how you deal with that. Here we are in Photoshop with the document from my website open that has the pictures of the hitchers that we're going to transfer to the parts. Right now, we're going to deal with Phineas's head, and we're going to make the detail lines thicker. I'm going to select the head with the lasso tool. There's a lasso tool also in GIMP. You should be able to do the same thing. We do a copy now, and a new document. The new document should be the same size that we need for the head, and we'll paste it in. The first thing we're going to do is take the layer and duplicate it, as you can see over here. Now I'm going to tell this layer to be darken only. It's going to darken only, so what that means is when we take the move tool and we move it around, see the lines are getting thicker? So I'm going to stop, let's see, I think I'm going to stop about right there. I can move with the arrow keys now until I get to what I'm after. And let's see, I'm going to call that what I'm after. And I'm going to go in here with the paintbrush, and I'm going to paint out this little mistake right here. I think that's down here on this layer. Yes, it is. And here's a mistake here. Some lines that I don't want anymore. I think that's on both layers. Yep. So I'll get that on both layers. And now we're done. All we have to do is print it. Before we print it, we're going to merge the layer down to flat. As we see right here, flatten image. That allows this document to be finished and all one layer, and you can easily copy from it. There are two ways to print, and the very easiest way, if you have Photoshop and it gives you a dialog that looks like this, you simply move it to this corner and print, move over here and print that, move down here and print that, and move over here and print that. You can do it all from this screen, just issue 4 prints and move it around. The other way, if that doesn't work, or if you're in GIMP and you can't do it that way, you can set a fixed size of like 7.25 by 10, which as you can see up here, I've done with the rectangle we have. That's my printer's useful area. And I know it'll fit in there. So I can go here, do a copy, go to a new document, paste it, print that. And repeat that process with each quadrant of the picture, and you've got the whole thing. And if you're at this point, it's probably a really good idea. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I am going to add a shadow to this hat. I'm going to come over here. I'll deselect that selection, and I am going to fill the hat by using the magic wand tool with a selection. Then I'm going to subtract out this area right here, and then I am going to get black as my color for painting. I'm going to go to Edit, I'm going to do Fill, and I'm going to fill to 100% with the foreground color. That gives me a shadow. Hat that Ezra is wearing has a stripe in it, so I'm going to kind of ape that with this. Yeah. We will push delete or push backspace and tell it to, wait a minute, first we need to set white as our foreground color again, and now we can press backspace and it'll give us a white stripe in there. It gives kind of a character look to it. And then I will save this as New Phineas, okay? And I'm using JPEG, and I will save it like so. So after I print it, I'll have it. If I have to print it again for any reason, I'll have a copy and won't have to do all that all over. So there we have it. That's our corrected head for Phineas, which we will proceed to paste up. Now, when you cut on a cutting board like this, you want to use a ruler made for the purpose like this that has a fence on it that guards your hand from the blade. And of course you can cut these with scissors, but I'm going to use this so I get nice square images that will line up like a puzzle and be almost virtually gap free. You want to line them up as well as you possibly can, and if there's a little bit of cut off, that's fine. We come up here to the top, we start our cut and just continue down, and that's our first cut. And it's, yeah, very clean. We're going to do our second cut where the bottom of the eyes are, right here at the bottom of the print zone. Do the same thing. We'll start our cut here at the top, drag it down the ruler, and we are done with the first piece. And we're going to continue with all of them. Turn these so I can more easily get to them. Center it on the paper, or center it on the cutting board to make sure that everything is lined up. Just do the best lineup you can with your eyes. That's good enough for this kind of thing. We're not building a paper house or something like that, so this isn't super critical. We only have to make 2 cuts per card for this face, and most of the body parts will take a little more cutting. But I'm not going to go through cutting the entire, or printing and cutting the entire layout, because once you do one, you pretty much have them all figured out. If you make any mistakes, a felt tip marker will be fine to cover it up. But you do want to make sure that you have white paper everywhere, and I'll go into that in a minute. What you don't want to have to do is come back with UV paint and do touch-ups, because sometimes the touch-ups will be brighter than the paper and you end up with a glaring mistake. I did that on a couple of places on the model that you've seen, and I wish that I could go back and do it again, but I just don't feel the need to go through all the trouble. Okay, so we're going to have a much improved Phineas face. When we get done. Okay, here we are back on the cutting board, and you'll notice that I have this side of the printout right along that line, so I can line it up on square, and I'm going to take my piece that I'm going to match and bring it down here until it's right along that, and I'm going to line it up on that line as well so it's square. And I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to make my cut, and it's going to come away just like I planned it. And then we take this and our top piece, and when we put them together, they should spell Phineas, at least that half of him. Now, we don't need all of this real estate over here, so all I have to do now is cut off anything that I know is not going to be in the picture. Take my cutter and take it down to that line. And then I'm going to take this piece and do the same. Right out beside that cheek there. Get it on the line so it's more or less square. Go ahead and make my second cut, like so. And these two pieces are almost done. We'll take the top off at the top of the hat. We really don't need that. Okay, this gets the left half done. Let's put this under the bottom of here. Yeah. We'll stick this under the bottom and line them up. Put it on the line. And make sure they're square with each other. Now, we take our ruler, do the same trick we did before. Pull that away. Get our cutter, the X-Acto knife or whatever you're using. Please make sure it's sharp. And we cut off the piece we don't need. And save it just in case. We're very close here, and we're on the line square down here. That's good. Take our ruler, bring it right to the stop point. Get the X-Acto knife and make our cut. And I save all my scraps just in case I've made a mistake, which I've been known to do from time to time. And we're done. And we have our assembled. Oh, we didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get the middle cut off. So we're going to lay the bottom up on the line, like so, and lay the top up on the line, like so, so that it's good and square. And it needs to come down just a bit. There we are. Okay, pull that away. Make the cut. Save the cut. And let's see if we need to do any further cutting. I don't think we do. Believe we're safe to say we're done. Yeah. Here we are looking at the printout in crudely assembled form on top of the piece of quarter-inch craft plywood that it's going to be glued down to. Now we're going to have to go back to the cutting board here and slice it up so it's a puzzle, so that everything matches as closely as possible. So then the next step, I would suggest you spray these front and back with acrylic sealer. We're going to be using tacky glue that's watered down. That's what I'm going to recommend you glue them down with. And you can see that our piece of craft plywood is just exactly the right size to handle this. And when you glue them together, you end up being in a position where you have some left to cut off the sides, and you're going to have to either use a coping saw or a jigsaw to get this cut because it is plywood. If you decide to use foam core board instead, you can use a knife. But again, use a sharp knife and be careful, because cutting foam core is a little bit tricky sometimes. You definitely want a cutting surface, something that you can either waste or something that's a cutting surface that heals itself, as they say, like the one I was using to cut the paper. Okay, now we're going to spray the bits and pieces of Phineas, and then we'll lay them up and glue them down. We've got plenty of ventilation here, got some fixative. You can use acrylic spray. Actually, that would probably be better. But we're just going to give them, the average coat of, I'm going to run 3 coats per side. Let that dry, and then we'll flip them over and hit the back. All right, it's time to glue it up. I'm just going to use some Gorilla Glue. I would recommend that if you have some tacky glue, you use that. It's better for non-porous stuff. But I don't, Gorilla Glue holds tight on virtually everything I've tried it on. So I'm going to go ahead with it. Paper's sealed pretty well. I'm not worried about that. Now I'm going to take water and a brush. I'm going to thin this, like so. This is primered wood. This I would recommend you use gesso. This stuff you prep canvases with when you paint, because it, and you can sand it with very fine 200 plus sandpaper and get a real smooth finish to glue to. So, but this is already prepped, so all I've got to do is lay it up, and we're going to flatten it. take our pieces one at a time. And match them as best we can. And get a squeegee. And keep working until we get it where it needs to be. The reason we use cardstock is to avoid wrinkles. I've had problems with thin paper and glue and wrinkles before, so I've learned my lesson. Make sure you get all the glue off the wet glue off the front. I'm going to put some weight on this while it dries. So we want as little glue as we can have present on the paper. This is the finish I originally planned on using if I were planning on leaving the figures out in the weather. I did check this to see if UV would pass through it. It does. It doesn't interfere with the black light, and it's a water wash-up. This is a flat finished Rust-Oleum latex, and I use that to coat the back of the figures and some of the metal parts of the apparatus. Works really well and dries pretty fast. Just wanted to show you the comparison in the line thickness on these two faces. It's a little bit subtle, but it's improved. I've sanded the edge and got a fairly nice smooth surface to paint on, got rid of all the jagged paper. As you can see, it's not too bad. Once we paint, you won't even know anything was wrong. We got Phineas on the right there and Ezra in the middle. Both of them have movable heads. These racks here control the movement of the head. And because I ran out of time last year, I did something really, really idiot simple. I tied them with lines and springs to this support, the axle on this support, and I knew I'd get a little bit of movement, but I got very little at all. It's almost unnoticeable. I'm sure you couldn't see it when I ran the figures for you. So what we're going to do is take that loose. I will tie them together and then tie the cross tie between them. I will tie to some other anchor point and see how that works. Now it's time to change Phineas's head out. So let's do that. I had to take the lever off to make it easy to get to the head mounting block. I had to glue a block to the back of the head I just made. Also drilled a couple of pilot holes to make the doing of this easier and to keep the wood from splitting should it decide to try. All right, now, okay, I'm going to show you the solution. It's this. I'm making final adjustments to it right now. It's this cross wire. It's a piece of that 20 amp house wiring that I used for these mounts, the orange mounts that you see. And I put loops in either end of it and attach them to the springs that are on these neck levers. And as you can see here, as I move this left and right, the arms to the head shift. And what happens is I lock it in the center, which I'm about to do, and when the unit runs, we can adjust here to the center, which is about right here, and I am simply going to crimp this wire. Yeah, it's fairly tight. I'm going to trim it one more time. That way I can adjust it again if it needs adjusting. Rather than putting a loop here, I will have the ability to just loosen this pinch and adjust it. So let's run it and find out what happens. Yes, it's already made a tremendous difference. You can definitely see that the heads are moving now. They're not moving too much. I'll put the camera around in front and show you. You can see that Phineas and Ezra are now moving their heads similar to Gus, but not as much. And here's the finished product of our labors as it looks under blacklight. Thank you for hanging out with me and helping me get through this. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again real soon.